Democracy does not revolve around what happens once in 5 years, but also about the rights of the citizens are protected, allowed to hold the power holders accountable. The Article 19 of the Constitution provides for the democratic protest of freedom of expression. That's very, very important in India. NGOs have been held on the judiciary whenever the government was needed, engagement of civil society in media and educating, which is very, very important today. Good morning and welcome to the first session, Chapter 2, Unit 3, 4th semester B.Ca. in Good Governance in India, where we're going to speak about people participation and role of civil society. Now, the most important thing is that when we talk about a civil society, it is a set of civic rights, including primary everyone's right to participate in public life. Now, this might look a little bit complex in terms of making you understand what is the meaning of participation in public life. Why? Because each one of us are already a part of this society. We function in different roles, in different capacities, in different levels in the society. But still, there are certain rights, there are certain functions where we need to exercise it so that we become a part of this enabling society. Now, the civil society forms the backbone of democracy, and democracy does not revolve around what happens once in 5 years, but also about the rights of the citizens are protected, allowed to hold the power holders accountable. We, as the citizens of India, have always cherished the factor called as the biggest democratic nation of the world. We have always felt that India has given its citizen every single right to live the life as you want it. But when you start thinking about democracy in detail, you will start thinking about it in a way, you will start being astonished about this factor that every 5 years once, when the election happens in India, that is the time when the politicians come back to you, ask for their votes. Now, that point of time a citizen feels, where were you for the last 5 years? What happened to you when my rights were disturbed? What happened to a person like me when I was not able to get my rights exercised in the same society where I'm living? So that's where democracy comes into picture. Democracy is not about just getting back to power. Democracy is not about just getting elected. Democracy is all about giving the citizens their rights, their fundamental rights, protecting them at each and every instance, making them feel that they have the power to go back and catch their representatives by collar in terms when the power is not being executed properly. Now, when we come back here, the civil society derives its strength from the Gandhian tradition of voluntarism. Today, it expresses in different form of activism. So everybody in this society would like to volunteer, would like to come out, would like to be a part of each and every activity. So that's where civil society gives you the freedom to be what you want to be in a society and do something good for the society. It refers to formal as well as informal entities of the private sector. It includes NGO and professional organizations. We have heard about several NGOs in our life. We also know how the NGOs function. But as a part of civil society, there are professional and non-professional organizations. When I use the word non-professional, that means they are informal in nature. Even they exist as a part of the society. They are there because for some purpose. They don't have a name, they don't have an identity, they don't have a logo, or they don't have a tagline, but they exist in the same society where you and me live. They exist in the same society for the sake of helping somebody. So we need to give them the platform. We need to enable them to transform the society. Now, the rise of civil society, as we are speaking about, the focus on civil society dates back to 1980, when the political scientists began to speak about crisis of representation. Now, this is a very, very interesting topic which I would like to talk about. Crisis of representation. Identity is such an important thing in a man's life. Why? Because whenever you want to stand up for a cause, for a reason, you really need to have that guts. You really need to have that strength to show up yourself before the society for a cause. But 99% of the time, it is so much evident that all of us like to hide behind the curtains. All of us would like to put a mask over our face and try to go away from the situation. We are good in escaping, but we are very bad in proving the evidence. That's exactly where the political scientists always come back and say the crisis of representation. Do we have the guts? Do we have the power? Do we have the standing capacity to go before the society, point out, bring out the mistakes, and tell people this is exactly where the problem is happening? Today, as we are speaking about, there is a lot of problem in North India where the floods have devastated the nation. We all know what is the reason behind it, but can any one of us go back and go to the government and say where exactly there has been the civic problem? Where exactly there has been a problem in terms of planning your infrastructure? We don't do that. So that's why we have this crisis of representation in the world. So that's where when we start going, we go into the newer modes of social movements, informal citizen groups, and non-governmental organization. Nowadays, we have a very fancy thing in our life called as the WhatsApp. Everyone is a member of some or the other group in the WhatsApp. Now, WhatsApp is a social media platform. Let me put it in a very, very simple way, a digital media platform through which you start exchanging your ideas, opinions, views, messages, photos, everything starts floating around you. But all this thing, when you start looking into the ground reality, they still remain as messages. They still remain as downloadables on your mobile phone. They don't become actionable items. That's exactly where we want the society to wake up. We want each one of you to start thinking, transform the society, bring back that power, bring back that life into each and every citizen who's living in this society. Make them understand that you are also an empowered intellectual who has the capacity to point out things when it goes wrong. That's exactly what we are talking about here. In India, by the late 1970s, the decline of all institutions gave rise to several mass-based political movements and grassroots activism. That's very, very important. The anti-caste movement, the struggle for gender justice, or when we talk about civil liberties, we are talking about sound environment against mega development projects. All this has been the role of a civic society coming up with its full force. We have always wondered that, do we have the power inside to change this world, to transform this world, to make this world a better place to live in? And the answer to that is definitely yes. We have the power. The only thing is that we need people to come together, represent for that problem. The filling of the interest litigations and judiciary activities also show that civic society is on a rise in India across the globe. Now, why we need an active civil society? Now, this is a very, very important thing when we talk about the civil society, because right to scrutinize the work of the people who are elected, that is your representatives, publicize acts like infringement of civil liberties and reasonable factors that have been affecting the citizen. So whenever we talk about these words, let's understand the meaning behind it. When you get elected to power, you forget the people who made you to come to power. All the politicians in India think this factor that, the people are always there to elect me back into power. But most of the politicians forget this factor that if you are not going to do something good, the public in return will never elect you back. So what have you done as an MLA, as an MP, as a member, as a minister, whatever you are in your roles and capacity, what is that good thing that you have done for the society? So the civic society has the power to scrutinize you. Plus, if there might be any kind of illegal activities that has happened in your life, that also needs to be scrutinized, that also needs to be brought to the limelight. The Article 19 of the Constitution provides for the democratic protest of freedom of expression. That's very, very important in India. Am I allowed to express myself before this great society? I have hatredness, I have love, I have got a different kind of opinion, I've got all kinds of expressions and feelings inside. But I don't find a platform. I don't find a ground to express myself. Why is the society restraining me from expressing? Why is the society putting a barricade against me? That's exactly where a civic society comes back and say that every citizen has the right to come forward and express himself. He cannot be stopped by any power, any caste, creed, religion, sex, gender. No, that cannot be a barricade at all. That cannot be a factor that can stop a citizen and say that you're not supposed to express. Everybody has the power. Now, you cannot be rejected on basis of the ethnicity or race altogether. So that's why a civic society comes forward and says that it is your right, expose the matter. Now, the right to participate in an activity should not be divested or restricted to politics and elections alone. Without this right, the democracy becomes an illusion. So civil society cannot be conceptualized independent of the state. So it's very important for all of us that we understand this factor. Democracy without the freedom of expression is just a dream. It is not a reality at all. What is the roles of the civic society? Let's going forward, we'll talk about this word called as watchdog against the violation of human rights and governing deficiency. We also need to know about an advocate, an agitator, educator, and a service provider. Look at the roles that are being played by a civic society. Let's start from the beginning. The watchdog, where you are going to guard the society, where the society is going to guard itself in terms of the atrocity against human rights, the governing deficiency. It's going to advocate on the weaker section's point of view. It's going to be an agitator on behalf of the aggrieved citizens. Yes, the citizens who are troubled, the citizens who have been in the factor that they've been troubled by the society, they've not been listened at all, they've never been given a chance to speak out. Their problems still hang around the society like a Damocles sword, which tries to say that we're not being able to do it. Now, an educator, citizen on their rights, entitlements, and responsibilities, governments about the pulse of the people. The government needs to know the pulse. What is happening? What's going to happen in future? That needs to be understood very, very clearly. The service provided to the areas and people are not reached by the official or governments as agent. Now, that's very, very important for us. Why? Because when you start understanding, at the end of the day, the government's primary role is to provide service to the people. If you are not providing the service as mentioned, automatically the society turns against you. So it is the nature of the civil society to stand against any kind of atrocity, to stand against any kind of injustice and bring it to the picture. Now, the civil society is also a mobilizer of public opinion against a program. The ways include Right to Information Act when we are talking about it. As we're going forward, the consumer protection, the whistleblower, the e-governance, decentralization, public interest litigation, and so on. So every time what we try to do here is that we try to make you understand something very clearly, that there are rights, there are acts available through which you can expose the injustice, you can expose the evil to the society. Now, whether if you ask me the question, is the justice 100% delivered? The answer is no. But then the justice will be delivered but not denied. Why? Because today you have the ways of putting things forward. You have the power to bring the solution in front of you. And that's exactly how you would see that all these acts have been created for the public to come out in the best way, explain the problem and take it forward. Now, when you start talking about the civic society, we also talk about the role in terms of large developing country like India, where there's numerous gap in terms of the society, supplementing the government effort, especially when it comes to healthcare, and a number of NGOs like Childline India, World Vision, RM, all of them have been playing an important role in terms of raising certain issues against child abuse and other factors. So everywhere you see that the role of civic society is being highly appreciated. Why? Because they understand the gaps of the society. They've tried to fill it up. They've tried to make this modern India a better place to live in. And they guide people. If there are any changes, any challenges, you need any help, they're always there to help you and take you forward. Now, in the last 20 years, there are a large number of NGOs in India who have been active environmental protection. NGOs have been helped on the judiciary whenever the government was needed. Engagement of civil society in media and educating, which is very, very important today. And civil society can influence the policy and project the formulation of membership of committees and memorandum. So the last 20 years, what has been very important is that NGOs have been playing a great role in terms of the environmental protection, and judiciary has also become more responsible enough, and they're trying to come up with solutions instantly. They also engage in the evils of corruption, awareness, and all other factors, followed by the project of formulation through membership committees and other acts altogether. Now, the concerns that are there about them is that their donors being labeled and targeted, the funds are being frozen, intelligence reports are selectively being printed, or the Union Ministry of Home Affairs rejected the license for renewal application of 25 NGOs. Many instances, NGOs such as Greenpeace have been projected as anti-national. Now, once you start fighting against the system will also try to come back in different ways, trying to project these people as anti-nationals, trying to tell them that they are not good, provide reports which are falsified, try to block their work. These are all certain concerns that the civic society has today, because these might create harm to the society in the great run altogether. So we need to be very careful in terms of making the system more stronger so that these things are not projected in the wrong manner. Now, the way forward is that we have to create a strong, vigilant civil society. The legislation also should be in the lines of the US False Claim Act, so that, in any case, if something has to be proved, we have law with us, a free media that is neutral and not biased, so that we are able to speak, we are able to express, we are able to tell people where exactly the problem. Use of information technology, which is coming into picture, the voter education and electoral reforms, which will transform the society. All these things are needed in terms of making the system even more stronger. Now, on a conclusion note, we need to understand the state must respect the articulation of politics. Promises of democracies has to be achieved, and the democratic state as a democratic civil society also needs to function equally with all rights given to them. With this, I come to the end of this particular session. I hope and believe that all the facts that have been spoken through this session would be of a great help to you, both in terms of theory as well as in the practical walk of life. In the upcoming session, we're going to speak about the challenges of the civil society. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.